view strongly as a whole. And now for an example of hardcore erotica. Only joking. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. Many studies have confirmed that with a higher level of general education, people become more accepting of and more likely to practice oral sex. It is not surprising then to see large portions of students who would not be ashamed if people were under the impression that they were involved in this behavior. This is probably my favorite slide. Apparently, my study shows that pretty much everyone likes swimming naked. Regardless of demographic, transcending overall score, there just aren't a lot of people who would turn down skinny dipping with an attractive person. This item as well had an unusually coordinated response pattern. The majority clearly views that thinking about sex is arousing. To the responder, this item likely seemed confusing and arbitrary, as it creates a lot of unanswered questions. Qualifications like an attractive person? Why are they exposing themselves? An emotional response? As compared to what? Well, on the other hand, this item has proven to sort groups. And as a result, it is not surprising that we find a divided opinion. It appears that the slight majority of students would not be excited by watching a stripper. Oh, okay. Goodness. This response graph shows that students in general are inclined to say that viewing an erotic movie would be a comfortable experience. As you can see here, students primarily stand against multiple long-term sexual partners. And again, a fairly predictable outcome, with the majority agreeing that it is not disturbing to daydream about sexual matters. The greatest grouping of students in this slide choose neither, which means that either they were just not sure what to make of the question, or they were split into one of two camps. Those supporting and those degrading the practice of highly unusual sex. And these are the average scores as per SOS of each sex. I was going to give this one of those lame academic names that's just a mashup of the X and Y axis, but I realized that people just laughed when I said the title was Mean Sex. But I think it's important to note here that there isn't really a big difference here. If you extend this to 0 and then to 60, it's really only a couple points, less than a point there. So that's important. And here, gradual growth with education is likely a result of general growth in education, which we linked earlier with oral sex. And undergraduate students with higher erotophilia scores have been shown to do considerably better than more erotophobic students on exams in classes with sexual material. More important, this graph indicates a sizable growth in erotophilia from freshman year to sophomore year and up to junior year. This, again, could be explored in terms of new gained independence and environmental change. According to this study, political liberals are more likely to score on the liberal side of the sexual measure. Very liberal respondents and a higher level of erotophilia than any other association. Since we know under 18 is just one respondent, it is more responsible to rule out its significance. Again, this slide closely represents the age slide, for obvious reasons, and is therefore likely a result of students' newly gained independence and the ability and the availability of a larger pool of sexual prospects. This is a full frequency distribution of the SOS scores found in the survey, which are neatly organized in a likening to a standard bell curve fashion, with the discovered leaning towards a more erotophilic mean. This indicates an effective methodology that has maintained internal validity. As such, I am inclined to suggest that future studies attempt to form the tool for clinical use seek to define the limits of two distinct and qualified disorders, namely erotophobia and erotophilia. Erotophiles, consisting of subjects with outliers in extreme positive score, and erotophobes exhibiting significantly negative scores. The remaining section ought to be addressed as the general public, as they represent the majority. As a result, future treatment of the public ought to appeal to both leanings, giving information that is both useful and proven as fact. Erotophiles, then, could be warned of the extreme dangers of engaging in sexual activities with many different partners. Conversely, erotophobes' particular communication and education or practical problems can be directly addressed through specialization. Through specialization, these two groups can with vastly different needs can be aided. Future research might replicate this study with its new and more practical style to alternate university and college campuses for tests for higher reliability and replication. Subsequent studies could then reach other demographics of varying ages and vocations, etc. This being only an exploratory survey, my results only consist of mere correlations, which would each need a well-drawn empirical study to yield any form or direction of causality. If there is time available, I would gladly field any questions at this time and will be available at the completion of the session for further inquiries. Thank you for your time and attention.
We do indeed have time for a few questions. We'll start with Dr. Howe. Thank you.
Hi. First of all, excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I first about one slide in the middle. I don't need to see the slide.
Oh,
but you were showing a increasing in people's score with class rank.
Yes.
And it strikes me as the problem with that bit of data is you're conflating two things: education and age.
Yes.
Right.
There are the two variables.
On average, a junior is older than a freshman, and it strikes me, part of what could be going on is people just maturing as they get older. Part of what could be going on is a certain kind of college socialization. I was wondering how you would control for that in a future version.
What I would do if I was going to conduct future research on it is I would actually do an empirical test there. I would take a different demographic that isn't being educated at the same rate as those students. Maybe they're working in a position, and then I would compare them to a control group of college students. And probably I would need to do a number of tests on that other group to see how they differ in other areas. But that would be excellent. Yeah, there are a lot of different experiments that need to be done to actually find causality in each of these situations. That's a very good point.
Other questions for Josh? Dr. Hammerley.
I think there's some evidence that, at least in regards to sex, that males are more visually oriented than females. So I'm wondering on the ones that particularly involve visual things, seeing the stripper and erotic movies, if there were big sex differences in that.
On the original, actually, I'm quite interested in this because the original survey showed a much higher margin for males. Males had a higher erotophilia score, and I believe that is because the survey itself was based on college individuals viewing pornography and just kind of documenting their responses. So this survey was very interesting because it closed the gap. It's almost like some variable, maybe that variable, has changed over time, and females and males are much closer at least on our campus and in this time, in erotophilia score. So I think that there are a lot of tests that would need to be done to see how that plays out and what variables are causing that.
We have time for one more question. Yeah.
That's a really question. I wanted to congratulate you on, I thought it was really awesome how you phrased these questions. They weren't biased towards heterosexual or homosexual or no preference at all, some people asexual. So
Yeah, I had to change that too.
That's
Like,
really awesome.
oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I had to change it completely because the older one was biased originally and couldn't even be answered by those individuals in a lot of cases.
Folks, join me in thanking Josh and
Thanks so much.
Adrian.